I was internal in an organization that I was leading a function. My position was being eliminated, and they offered me two other positions. And one of the positions was in training and development. And I said, okay, I will go into the area of training and development. And I had been in HR. So I had not thought of training and development at all before. The two things that they did when I took the position, I went to an HI human interaction lab, and this was in 1979.
Wow.
And I went to an introductory to Gestalt.
Oh,
And those two experiences taught me about, when one door closes, multiple doors can open, because both of those organizations became very important to me in my life. And so I came into NTL in 1988. And my understanding was, when I came in, because attending members meeting, there were 100 people over the course of 88 and 89 that was being brought into the organization. And so it was, I remember talking with members that I had known before coming in, and asking them what the organization was like. And I don't think anyone can describe it, what the experience is once you become a member.
right.
Because what I have loved about the organization is its mission, is its values, are the members who are a part of this organization that really becomes lifelong friends for you. Not just that we're lifelong learners, but the relationships again become very important.
Right.
So that was early on for me, and I was interested in the human interaction lab. So as you know, I was always a part of those programs that we offered. And I also became very interested in organization development, because that was the field that I was interested in and was doing my work in, and became interested in probably at that time it was, what is organization development? Later, then it got changed to theory, practice, and OD. It was sort of the anchor program, other than the human interaction lab, for the certificate program. And actually the last, I probably taught the last theory and practice OD that was in person in 2019, because after that, everything shifted and things became virtual. So what was important to me about that was, again, getting connected with the members in NTL. And I also, one of the things that came out of that was Michael Brazel and I taught that program, along with, I taught it with Ted Schutte, I taught it with Jane Pearson. There were a group of us, again, that would rotate into the program. And Michael and I continue to say, we don't have the materials that we still really want for this lab. And out of that, in 2006, Michael and I went to Diane Porter, actually probably the year before, because I think Diane may have left at the end of 2005. And we asked her if we could author or co-edit a book. And it was the NTL Handbook for Organization Development and Change. And it was published by Josie Bass and then John Pfeiffer. And then we did a second edition in 2014. So that came out of the work that we were doing in NTL, the relationship that we were building, what we saw as a need, not only in the program in NTL, but also in the field of organization development. So I've always appreciated how NTL has been a part of the research, the theory practice, and again, having a reputation about its work in OD.
Right. Goodness, you've been busy with NTL, haven't you, through the years? Yeah.
I have been.
So, and what was it that first attracted? What drew you to become a member of NTL?
Well, you and I have Charles Coverdale as a dear colleague. And he actually was in the initial lab that I took in 1979.
Oh, was he? As a participant?
No, he led.
Oh, he was a facilitator.
He led. Now, his brother Don was a co-lead. He was coming up in the field, but it was Charles that I first initially met. But it was David Callahan. It was, I remember the experience like it was yesterday, and we were in Safety Harbor as well. It actually took me about 5 or 6 years to get to Bethel because there were labs being offered in Safety Harbor, and that I was still internal at the time, and the organization sent me there. When I first went to Bethel, it was for the acculturation process, because then I had been brought into the organization, and I met Marianne Rainey. Although I had known Marianne before, I didn't know that we were coming into NTL at the same time. It was just, again, a number of us that I met. But Charles actually was my T group facilitator. And so we got connected. And then as I continued to do work at the Gestalt Institute, it was also, a John Carter and others who was saying NTL would probably be a place for you, and Daria Funches, So those were some of the earlier colleagues at that time.
You're bringing up names that are dear to me, but that I have not thought of in a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. So then in the middle time of NTL, what was it like as you progressed along?
Right. I continued to do a lot of labs. What I would say, I'm going to say in 2005, Bob Marshak and I did a theory and practice in OD in India. And it was
really
the first time in a number of years that NTL had a certificate program in India. I had done, I think, Singapore. Bob and I were in Singapore. I had done a lab in the UK, but it was 2005 when Bob and I did the the certificate program together. And then Bob was not able to make it. And then Ted Schutte and I did a program in India. In that certificate program was the group development and facilitation. So I had the pleasure of working with that cohort. And I want you to know that I still keep in touch with a number of people in that cohort in India from that time, which for me
Yeah,
is,
were you a facilitator or were you a
yeah,
participant?
I,
You're a facilitator,
Bob,
okay.
right, Bob and I
Right.
were co-leading that,
Uh-huh.
and then Ted and I co-led the program. And I remember because Michael and I had been working on the NTL handbook, and I said to Bob when we were on the plane coming back from India, I said to him, well, when are you going to publish a book? Bob at that time was writing a lot of articles. He's sort of a prolific writer,
Right.
and he did not have a book out. And within a year from that, Bob had a book coming out on covert processes,
Oh,
work again.
so you were the cause
So
of that, huh?
I would have to say that I was a nudger, certainly. I'm
You're an
not sure.
instigator.
I'm
Right.
not sure. But that's what I liked so much about the organization, that we not only work together, we collaborated together, we are interested in each other, what each other are doing. And also we see where we could be doing something else. And that is one of the things that was happening. I would say that I got a chance to start with Mian, the UK program. I was one of the first, actually it was Bob and I, no, actually Michael Brazel and I did the first program. And I want you to know that when we went in and was doing the theory and practice in OD, I was surprised that the group had not had the human interaction lab. And she said to me, Brenda, we don't want to scare people. We want them to take the certificate program. And I said, the Human Interaction Lab is not going to scare people. I said, what it's going to do is have them develop themselves more at an individual and a group level, that when they come in to talk about organizations, they're going to be more grounded, they're going to be more skilled. So it was obviously too late for that first program in the UK. That second program in the UK, the Human Interaction Lab came first, and then the theory, practice, and OD came second.
And it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
They're even much more open
Right.
to all of the possibilities of their own development, Barbara.
Oh, absolutely.
I understood what Mian was concerned about. And to shift them made a big difference in terms of you saw them coming in to a theory, practice, and OD having more capacity for what organizational work is. And that is, again, what I appreciate about us in OD is that we can start to figure it out. And still the core of that work is that human interaction lab.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I do.
Yes.
So
I would say that I had a chance to go to Japan and work with the group there. And I would say to you that both the work that we do in NTL and in the US, and then the work that we do globally, to me, I want to share with you an experience that I had when Tony Cortins and I did some work in Saudi Arabia. And
Wow, you've been everywhere, haven't you?
I have. It
Yeah.
feels like it was incredible work. But it was even more important to me than that because it was my first time working with an all-Muslim group, and wearing the habaya and the hebja, clearly out of respect, and going into a country whose religion, again, was obviously so important. And I'm actually thinking now, because the president of the United States is in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And things have changed since I was there in 2015. But the president of the organization, and this was an arm of the Islamic World Bank. This was an arm of theirs. The person who brought us in, Dr. Wali, had attended in the 1960s and in the 1970s a program in Bethel. So the way that NTL got that project was because here was a Kuwaiti who came to Bethel and went to a human interaction lab, did a couple of more labs, having gone that distance, and had always said to himself that if, when I'm working in an organization, I am going to bring NTL into this organization. And he did. He brought NTL into the organization, and then they brought us back. So initially, we talked with the top 12 men. We worked with them. And because I was limited as a woman of where I could go or what I could do, when we went to do our offsite, they moved all of the top executives and Tony and myself, they took us all to Dubai. We did the session in Dubai because Dubai did not require women to be as restricted as I would have been in Saudi Arabia. So here we were in the Grand Hilton, Grand Hyatt, on the concierge level, engaging, and they did some incredible work, Barbara. And
really,
it wasn't, so I'm talking about where NTL's values meet another religion and culture and country's value, because everything that they did came out of the Quran. And so we came with a conflict that was among two of their leaders. They had not spoken to each other in well over a year. And one was the deputy, and one was someone who the president had brought in. And they were sort of rivals or in conflict with each other. Well, what we learned was, we had asked them before we went to Dubai, would they be willing to have a conversation with each other before we left to do this offsite? And both of them refused. They were not interested in talking with each other, and we're thinking, okay, we're going to be sitting in a room with these 12 men, and we're going to have 2 of them not wanting to engage each other. And so we worked with them separately to say, what is this going to be about? And how can we support you in this process? Well, what we learned about through their religion was what brotherhood meant to them. And what brotherhood meant to them was that they had to, at some point, come together for the sake of the brotherhood to ultimately support the work that the leadership wanted to do. And we were there with them 5 days. So this wasn't just a 2 or 3 dayer. It was a 5-day lab that we designed and that we were all in Dubai for. And so,
how do you design a lab where the 2 principal players don't speak?
yes,
or don't? Oh my, what a challenge.
We were really challenged by that. And we kept saying, we'll get through the first day. Because, you know, it was in our usual format of no tables. We're sitting in a circle of chairs. We're constantly moving them, engaging them. And by day 2, these 2 men had a conversation that shifted not only them, it shifted the group, Barbara. And I am still saying to myself, it was the integration of their religion and their respect and honor of their religion. And they're willing to collaborate with us in NTL. And it was extraordinary. And they brought us back a couple of years later to work with the next 24 people at the next level. And we had a group. And when we went back, Barbara, we wanted them to have a World Cafe. And I want you to know that we have a 1 or 2 or 3 minute video of that World Cafe. And one of the things that we did, that I did, was to talk to the women in the organization separately. Because the women, we said we wanted the women included in your bringing the organization together. And yet we wanted to hear from the women, what did you need? How do we support you? Because we had already been working with the leadership. These 20...
There's no women in the leadership, right?
No women in the leadership.
Yeah.
No. And I learned a lot, again, about the women. So one of the things that we made a decision to do, that when we rotate the group in the World Cafe, we would keep the women at least in pairs or in trios, and they would rotate together, that there would be no woman left by herself, you know, at a group of table with the men. And so it did not alter significantly what we were doing, and we could not have done it if we had not spoken with the women separately to learn about what their needs were. And when they sent to us the recording of the World Cafe, you do not see the women.
Yeah, but
So,
baby
yes,
steps,
you take baby
baby
steps,
steps.
absolutely. But the
Yeah.
women were there, the women participated. The leaders actually ran the entire World Cafe. We developed them over a couple of days, and you would not have known that we were there because we were in the background. And it was incredibly special, Barbara,
Oh, but
incredibly special.
have you written any of this up? This is just something
No,
that needs, oh, Brenda,
no,
oh, Brenda, this is
no.
just so, well, I'm glad we're getting it on a recording. I'm
Yes,
glad.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and I would say the latest, or somewhat late, was when I was president. There
of
was
NTL.
of NTL. Yes,
Okay.
there was a delegation from Japan that. So this is Kazu, who is an NTL member, who contacted me to say, I'd like to bring a delegation of Japanese leaders, again, only women. And this was 2013. 2013. I'd like to bring a delegation, and I'd like to spend a day at NTL. And that meant we would have they wanted us to put on a program for them of them learning about bringing OD into Japan. What did these leaders, and they came from all different companies in Japan. And do you know, Barbara, I found the list of who these people were that came. And so we coordinated and coordinated and coordinated. So what we learned was, again, there is still a pecking, or at that time, there was still a hierarchical process in Japan. So you knew who the leaders were, and everybody else followed them. Even when they got on the bus and got off the bus, that's how they were doing things. So they were, the day before they were with us, they had already come to the US, and they were with General Electric. They spent a day in New York at General Electric's Learning Center, and they were learning again about OD from General Electric. The next day, they came to NTL. And I want you to know that we were rolling out the red carpet for them, that we had Ollie Malone and a number of NTL members. Ollie had done a research project so that he could share the results of what they needed to learn and understand about having internal OD functions. And this was research just off of the press that we did in NTL. And so in the morning was sharing with them the results of this research that Ali and others had done. And then in the afternoon, we had a panel. We invited a panel of internal OD folks to talk to the Japanese around what was it like. And it was an incredible day. And then the afternoon, we had a reception for them. And then, because they were there the next day, we took them to Johns Hopkins University, and they had a client day with Johns Hopkins University. And I happened to, well, I graduated from Johns Hopkins, but I knew who was heading up OD. And I reached out to her, and she said yes. And she gave them all kinds of mugs and, you know, just lots of gifts and lunch. And then that evening, they were going to the airport because they had an evening flight to San Francisco, and they were going to spend a day with Hewlett Packard. So here we had a delegate, a bus of delegates from Japan that spent a day with General Motors, that spent a day with NTL, and then went on to Hewlett Packard. And we could not have been in better company, Barbara. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. So for me, NTL has continued to be recognized in its work, in ways that I really appreciated. And we were able to give out copies of jabs. We were able, it was just wonderful. A lot of work and absolutely wonderful.
And I hope you don't miss that the common denominator there in all of the stories that you told would be you, because I really know that you spread magic wherever you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
you do. So,
you.
and I'm not trying to take away from anything that you said, but please remember that you're the common denominator.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's to me part of what I've gotten from NTL in terms of cultural awareness, you know,
Right.
diversity, you know, all of, for me, what really sits in the core of the work that we do, then that it's a pleasure to be able to spread not only the knowledge, but those experiences as well. So,
Yeah, yeah. So let's see, we've got 45 minutes and let's see, we've got about 5 more minutes, 5 or 6 more minutes.
yes.
What would be, if we use the appreciative inquiry language, what would be your high dreams or high hopes for NTL currently?
Yes. Yeah. Well, there is no question for me that who NTL is needed in this particular time more than any time. I like being able to think that we have people who can look at what our skills and capabilities are. So we can look outward and we can look inward. And I'm hoping that we do that, because it's that, to me, combination of what we're capable of doing. So when I say look outward, it is looking at the different cultures that not only, again, exist in the world, but even in their differences, in their religious differences, in their cultural differences, can be connected and want to be connected
Right.
to each other, and the work, again, that keeps them growing in development. So I want us to be thoughtful as an organization, and know that we can be influential and contributive to the kind of world that we all want to live in. So I want NTL to have a role in that, and find out what that looks like for the 21st century. Because again, our roots are so in the 20th century, rightly so, because we could not have gotten to 75 years if we had not started so many years ago. And yet, I think we're capable of becoming NTL in the 21st century, you know, in this global world that we're living in. And that's my high hope. That's what inspires me, and that's what keeps me connected.
Is there any story that you think that you have not gotten to tell that you want to go down on this in the archives?
Hmm, hmm. I hope that we can capture, our celebrations, because we know how big the 50th celebration was. That was when there was a Lewin Forum, that Fred Masaryk did. And I truly remember how significant that was. And I would only want us to know, at least to me in the research, even some of the latest research, Barbara, it only supports what we have always been about.
Right.
And
Yes.
therefore, for me, if we understand that, we may not have been the researchers or the theorists around, what is happening today. It is still available to us. And how are we using it, as we move through our 75th and beyond that. So I'm appreciating. When I was president, we had our 65th anniversary, and it doesn't compare in a way to how widespread the 75th is. And I am wanting, and I think that's why the stories that came up for me were how we have stretched ourselves globally in a way that we may not have appreciated as much before, and we have.